Hey guys, Bix Weir, roadtoroot.com. Got Ken Swartz on the line, fresh from Albuquerque. He blew the mind of the crowd in Albuquerque, talking about everything from health to C60, get your C60, to geopolitics, to oh my God, everything. And we decided we're going to talk again today about everything. Mainly, Ken believes through his analysis and research and other things that this is a big day. Ken, how are you?
Doing great. And on this crazy April 1st day.
First day of the second quarter, right?
Yes, I guess so. Yeah.
What's really right now on the tip of your interest, on the tip of your tongue, on the tip of the tipping point? Where do you see where we are?
Well, today is the day Putin said the Europeans and Chinese and the Japanese and the unfriendly countries have to start paying for their gas bills in rubles. And they've been paying in euros and whatever, but now they've got to pay in rubles. And on all the European countries said, no, we're not going to do that. So
they got no gas, they got no fertilizer.
They got no gas. I mean, they can't. They'll have to shut down all the industry, and I don't understand the European rulers are just so retarded. They're basically cutting their own throats for their American masters, and
unless they're doing it on purpose.
But that's going to crash all economies in Europe. And the Russians, because the price of everything has gone up, they're not hurting. In fact, the ruble, Biden was bragging about how they crushed the Russians with the sanctions, and their country went down from the 11th biggest in the world to the 20th, and it's going to go down further because of their crushing sanctions. Well, the ruble has completely recovered as yesterday. All of this lost value, and it's even going to go higher. So that has completely failed as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me is I know the bankers are in trouble. I know they're looking for an exit strategy. They would love to do something like blame Putin for the destruction of the world. What's your take as far as I did a lot of work into the petrodollar, how that was set up in the early 70s with Greenspan and what was it, Kissinger, and how they set up those partnerships with Saudi Arabia to reinvest oil profits, forcing the world onto a US dollar, petrodollar bullshit. I mean, we've talked about that on the road to Ruta. But the thing that got me was later on. I think they were able to go off of that up to 20 years ago because everything now is traded in derivatives. Even currencies are traded in derivatives, and the amount of derivatives you can throw at anything is unlimited if you control the mouse. So I think they could have easily crushed the ruble had they clicked the mouse and sold massive amount of derivatives, but they didn't. And the ruble retained its strength, and something else is going on behind the scenes.
Well, I think people are worried. They stole $300 billion of Russian foreign reserves, right, in banks all across Europe and I think Japan, because the U.S. said you have to do this. You have to seize their foreign reserves, which has never happened before. Even in World War II, the British respected that thing with the Nazis, right? Mm-hmm. So all the foreign reserves were even though they were at war and there was other things, they respected that thing. But now that's gone. And so you got to think about Saudi Arabia and all these other countries are saying, well, if I get on the bad side of the U.S., they could just steal all our money too, and our foreign investment funds. So they're saying, whoa, this is the United States is no longer a protector. It's a serious threat to because they've weaponized the dollar. And do you want a weapon being used against you? So you don't want to be in the dollar. You want to be out of the dollar into something else. I'm sure gold, on the Russians also pegged the price of gold on, or they have a floor on the gold. I think it was like 5,000 rubles for an ounce or something.
Yeah. Is that, I keep hearing people send me stuff all the time, and they just say, oh, Russia's going to back the ruble with gold. I don't think they ever would. And if they did, it would have to be a redeemable type of situation. The only reason to back a currency with gold is because people don't trust the currency anymore. So if you back the currency but don't make it redeemable, what's the use of the backing? Because nobody trusts you anyway. But I do believe that sound money in the United States will go to a gold standard where it is redeemable. You can go into a bank with your paper money issued by the Treasury, not the Fed, I don't think, and cash in for actual gold. Because faith and confidence is gone. If any country backs
Yeah,
their currency, they're not
yeah,
gonna just trust them.
yeah, there is faith. Yeah, actually, the Russians deal was we'll buy any gold for like this 5,500 rubles. We'll buy if you have gold, you want to sell gold, we'll buy it for this price.
The amazing thing about that is,
They can create it out of thin air.
oh
They can
yeah,
create it out of thin air and buy gold. What a
who would,
deal!
who
Well,
would
that's
sell
what the
their
U.S. has
gold?
been doing.
But the funny thing is that Biden and his brilliant sanctions people said, "Oh, we're going to stop Russia from selling gold." Russia doesn't want to sell gold; they want to buy
No,
gold. They're not
of
stupid.
course. Who would want to sell gold or who would want to sell silver? That's just ridiculous. And yeah, so you got to wonder because what's going to happen is if the Russians said we don't do charity if you don't pay in rubles, we're turning the gas pipe off.
Mhm.
And it won't be a week or two before they have to just to keep the people's houses things. They'll have to shut down German industry and French industry to a lesser extent. Not that they have that much, but and yeah, that will just totally implode. And but you know they could have a complete political collapse of Europe. You know the whole euro system could disintegrate with this, and it's just I think part of it is these are spoiled brats. Back in the day, people were raised differently, but in this current generation of leaders, they basically were narcissists raised by narcissists, and they think that they can always have it their way, and have a temper tantrum, and it'll just go that way. Well, that's not the way the Russians are. If they say that, then it's going to be that, and if you don't want to play that game, well, they'll just take their toys and go home.
I think you're exactly right. I'm keeping an eye on China to do the same thing with the U.S. I think, I mean, my take is it was part of a plan that Trump put together with Putin and Xi to destroy the banking cabal that runs the world, the Kazarian Mafia, whatever you want to call them. Somebody in our Albuquerque session, somebody had asked one of those questions about the Kazarian Mafia because that's kind of in the news these days, at least the fringe news.
Yeah, it's a word people like to use, but it's really just the Jewish financial mafia, and it's
Yeah.
run out of the city of London through the House of Rothschilds. And the House of Rothschilds is not the only big banking family out there.
Right.
There's a lot of really big banking families, nearly as big as them. Certainly, all combined, they're much bigger than the Rothschilds, and they've been around for centuries. You just don't know their names.
Right. And I would add to that. I do think we're at the end game for this form of currency. Every unbacked fiat monetary system has failed. And usually it only takes 7 years, sometimes up to 50 if they keep messing with the, rejiggering the system. We theoretically have been off a gold standard since 1933, when the confiscation, and 34, when the confiscation of gold happened. And then there was a pseudo backing until the Bretton Woods agreement. Then there was a different backing. Then Nixon finally went off it in 71. Theoretically, it should have collapsed by the end of the 70s. What happened, I believe what happened was Alan Greenspan, with his computer programs, was able to rig the exchanges. And then that rigging with computers and derivatives, that rigging continues today. And if you remember 1980, Reagan, we had just raging inflation, and Volcker pretended, I'm going to save it by tightening. Yeah, he put the interest rate up to close to 20%, but at the same time, what they were doing is rigging the prices of commodities to hide the fact that the fiat game will end someday. And here we are, 40 years later, it's still going. This is the longest running unbacked fiat currency in the history of humanity. And I think over 2,000 have already failed. We're at that point. I think we're at the fail point, but because they have these computers and derivatives that can set the price of everything, it's going to be much stranger than ever before. And the key, I think the biggest thing is it's the first time in history that the whole world has been on an unbacked fiat monetary system. At least during the other collapses, some parts of the world were on a gold standard or a silver standard. But now this is going to envelop the entire world of a collapsing currency system. It's
yeah, and there's a lot of things people don't know out there. Like for instance, the Professor Skidmore, University, and he did the studies. Right now, they're claiming there's like $30 trillion in outstanding treasuries, but Skidmore did it, and extrapolating from what we know, there's something like $130 trillion of outstanding U.S. treasuries. Right? That's what's
extra 100 trillion.
Yeah, trillion, 130 trillion. That's, and so that's, I don't know what the US economy really is. And that's another thing. I have an economics degree from back, but it doesn't matter because all the statistics are fake. All the statistics about inflation are fake. All the statistics about unemployment are fake.
The statistics about how much that is. I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
they're doing
Everything,
infinity money right now.
everything is fake. We have no idea on these because they just, it's like the ridiculous things of inflation, But if you actually look at what people buy, the real inflation rate people are feeling is 15 to 20%.
Mhm.
That's when you throw
Every year.
your fuel cost, your rent cost. They don't count that in their quote official government statistics. Well, no, they don't put what people actually use. They'll put something like dishwashers and
computers.
Yeah, exactly. But because the dishwasher is the new improved version, well, it's 5% better, so we'll just cut that off. So their numbers mean nothing. They're just, it's complete fraud now, and it's hard to make economic forecasts and even anything when you have no idea. And who knows what's in the derivatives market? We have no idea. But the thing is, when you could pump things forward, but when they go backward, I mean, if the system ever disintegrates, it could really disintegrate. Literally, that piece of plastic you have in your card in your wallet will not work and won't work ever again.
Well, let's talk about that end game. I've talked about the end game for the last 20 years on my channel. What's your take? How do you see this all work? I mean, it has to work out some way. How do you see it all working out?
Well, they have this thing where they're going to put in these digital currencies, and I guess what do they call the national digital currencies?
The central CBDCs, central bank digital currency.
Central bank. But these people are so incompetent. Maybe not the ones in the top; they're pretty evil. But the people that they've hired, the whole structure, like for instance, in the Ivy League schools, basically they have this system where only sociopaths and psychopaths they jump through these hoops, and that's the only people they hire. And these are basically spoiled, narcissistic kind of people, and they literally don't have the capacity to do that. Yeah, they're good at bootlicking and ass kissing, but in really actually doing something real, they're not capable of doing. I mean, look at the same with NASA, right? They get what, 25 billion and they can't do jack, whereas somebody like or Musk or Bezos, they can do the same with just a couple of billion.
Yeah, the NASA thing cracked me up when I think it was last year. They're saying, "Hey, we're going to send another guy to the moon, but it's going to take about 10 to 20 years because we lost the original math." I swear to God, this is like the head of NASA saying this. We lost the original math to get us there that we did in the 1960s, so we can't do anything for another 20 years. It was the most insane statement from the head of NASA I ever saw.
Their math sucks. They couldn't do the math in the first place. That's if you go listen to NASA, the lunar landing, they had this extra fuel. That's because NASA couldn't actually accurately measure gravity on the moon. That's why there's extra fuel, because the moon's prolate. It's like an egg pointed toward us. So and that's why they always kept crashing. They try to land stuff on the edge of the moon, and it kept crashing. And then they had extra, and that's like the Mars Polar Orbiter. Those morons did. I don't know if you do this. I was doing the mathematics. The Mars Polar Orbiter, I went and looked at it, and they were doing like Mars is like oblate. It's a little bit thicker between the poles, and so literally they had. I went and looked at NASA stuff before they hit it, and they were estimating. They were using like basic Newtonian formulations, which but because Mars is oblate, they were overestimating polar gravity by like 0.5%. When the Mars Polar Lander came in, and so when they came in, they had to they had a 4-kilometer retro burn, right? And if you had off 0.5%, well, instead of being like 10 meters above the surface when the landing radar went, they were like 200 meters off the surface. And I know Dr. Peter Smith, and he ran the Phoenix lander, which was exact same platform. And I sent him the saying, look, these morons couldn't figure out the math, and that's what went. So he said he couldn't believe NASA did it, but he changed the parameters. So the minute that the parachute kicked off and the retros came in, the radar was operating, and that's why the Mars Polar Lander landed. That's why the Phoenix lander landed, and the Mars Polar, identical in size and landing area, pretty much the same thing, crashed. They couldn't do math back then. Yeah. And they couldn't do math today. So yeah,
it's amazing the amount of lies that we're being subjected to control us, to get us to do what they want. I think a lot of it is breaking apart, and clearly with the whole Biden laptop thing, and the Clintons getting sued, and then the federal election committees going after the Clinton administration or the Clinton Global Initiative and
Oh,
the
yeah.
Democratic Party for you name it. I mean, so much is coming out now. Where do you think we go from here over the next, let's say, the remainder of this year? Can the Biden administration live through an obvious criminal background? And number two, will our financial system keep kicking along? Are they going to figure out ways to kick it along? Do you think this year is the year it all ends, or what's your take?
Well, I've been thinking it was going to end a lot sooner than it
Yeah,
has.
me too.
And but they've done things. They can pump virtually infinite amounts of money into, like you see, like, you know, the market goes down come Friday. They just create infinite amounts of money out of thin air and jack the market up. And but you see, they don't have a plan B. All they can do is, I mean, it's like a heroin junkie. You know, it's they crash, they shoot some more up, shoot some more up, shoot some more up, and get back up to that high. But you know, and they can do that to a certain extent, but then there's the physical reality behind it. And then one day they're just shoot it up again, and the whole system ODs. And it doesn't come
So what
back.
does that look
They
like?
killed it.
What does that look like to you when the moment that, let's just say, for example, and I think this will happen, one of the too big to fail banks has a derivative issue, has whatever, and collapses, and it goes to Congress, just like in 2008. It goes to Congress, and they either bail them out or they don't bail them out. I do not think Congress will bail out the banking cabal anymore.
Oh, I'm not sure Congress has any power. I just think that the Federal Reserve, the people behind the Federal Reserve, and I mean, look, there's nobody in the White House obviously running things, and you know, the Federal Reserve and BlackRock and Vanguard, State Street. I mean, they're all basically one. There's just one company now that runs everything, and those people took all the pension funds, because what they do is eventually they get control of, like, let's say, an insurance company which controls a lot of pension funds, and then they say, hey, no, you've got to take your pension funds and put them in our BlackRock investment fund. I used to teach a long time ago, and I had like a little 401k and stuff left that I just let floating. And all of a sudden I get the latest statement that it's a BlackRock fund now. They've just gone siphoned up all your pension funds, all that stuff, and it's now in their pocket. And then they use the power of everybody's money is now their money, and they're using the power as a club to get whatever they want. And since they got I think there's 3 BlackRock people in the White House right now.
Oh, there's more than that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's and vice versa. There's politicians in BlackRock.
Oh yeah.
BlackRock took over the entire book of the Fed and of the Treasury, is what I'm hearing, because there's people within the Fed that are BlackRock. I first discovered BlackRock when I was diving into the silver manipulation. Most of the silver manipulators that shut down at Bear Stearns and at AIG went over to BlackRock, along with people within the U.S. Treasury, went over to BlackRock to continue the con. So do you see this ending, or do you? I mean, we it's easy to see it ending, but do you think they will continue it? Because I do believe they're good guys that can pull the plug at any moment.
Yeah, I think they're just going to keep pumping. They have no plan B. There's no plan C. And everything is based on, like, the value of equities and all the pension funds and everything. If the stocks ever thing, what happens is the inflation will continue to grow. Mm-hmm. It's going to get worse and worse. And eventually market forces that they can't control are going to drive the yield, with basically the yield on long-term, you know, the yield for long-term loans is going to rise. And when it's above 3 or 4%,
I would think it would be a lot higher already, but because they have these derivatives that can
they're forcing it. But you know, there are market forces. When inflation gets too high, there's no way they're going to be able to control long-term borrowing costs. Right. And people will just demand a higher interest rate, or they won't loan. And so at some point, you know, right now they're buying like all the mortgage-backed treasuries, just like in 2008. Or
1.5 trillion per night in the reverse repos.
Exactly. And that stuff's just going into, they're buying all the reverse repo stuff. Everything is going on just to keep down treasury rate, or keep down lending rates.
Yep.
But if they can't stop the lending rates, which eventually, you know, if inflation hits 20% in their thing, which might be 30%, at some point, you know, borrowing will stop, and there'll be no amount of, and the more money they put in just drives it worse. And I mean, when long-term borrowing rates get above 5%, on the open market, that's when basically the stock market will die. Because
I
People will
agree.
know at that point. And when the stock market crashes, people will run for the exits.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll just do whatever it takes to get to go for safety. And
Yep.
of course, the price of gold, silver, Bitcoin, commodity.
I don't know if gold, silver, Bitcoin, and cryptos and all that. I don't know if I think in that scenario, I think all those exchanges will shut down. They're so criminal. The exchanges are so criminal. So the real price of silver and gold will be unimaginable, but where will we find it? I mean, literally right now there's only there's one exchange on the planet for silver where silver is priced, and that's the futures and options contract on the COMEX. The LBMA is not an exchange. It's just a fraud place to wash derivatives. I believe that we are at the point where we're running out of silver, and silver will be ultimately the bank killer, the killer of everything, because the world cannot survive without silver right now. It's in our flat screen TVs, it's in our electric cars. I mean, the Green New Deal is DOA, dead on arrival, if you ask me. But now we're hearing a lot, like the U.S. Treasury just, I think yesterday, announced that, or it was the U.S. Mint, said, hey, we need everybody to pay in coins, the exact amount, because we need to get those coins circulating again. But the reality is they created less coins last year. I think because they see the crashing of the Federal Reserve System, we're going to be going back to the U.S. dollar, the actual money of the United States.
Oh yes,
because the U.S. Mint makes that money. Do not cash in your coins for those Federal Reserve notes. They're two different deals.
Yeah, and it's because the coins are produced by the U.S. Treasury.
Yep.
And that's probably the long-term plan, is just to basically declare the Federal Reserve note dead and reissue U.S. dollars.
I don't think they have to declare it with all the derivatives.
Well, eventually at some point when they reissue a U.S. dollar, but
yeah,
the thing is the problem is the banking system could go. I mean, we're at such an edge. If the panic hits, and there are no reserves, by the way. They used to have reserve requirements for banks. There's no reserves. There's no cash in those banks out there. So people ran down to their banks to get their cash. It's not there. They don't even have a 10. I don't even know. It's 1% maybe of what it is, and it's just this huge giant bubble, and it's all electric money, and it's all based on it's all based on just nothing really, but it's just based on people
faith and confidence.
And once reality sets in, because there's physical reality. I mean, it's like what Europe's going to discover. They can believe anything they want, but when that gas stops flowing,
good night.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't matter what you want, your little, and I think many people live in synthetic reality. They've been watching television and movies, and they live in this just out of touch with reality, the physical reality. And for many people, they can just get away with it because of the way things are. But the physical reality has a way of catching up on you. Yep. And if you look at this economic state of the United States, I mean, our physical economy is collapsing. It's just everywhere.
Absolutely. Ken, we could go on like this forever. I do have another appointment, but oh my God, everything that we've been talking about for years is actually happening.
Yeah, and today really is, I think this would be probably, people will look back and say, yeah, today was the first official day that the end of the world dollar trading dominance, because
and that's no little deal, my friends. That is gigantic.
Yeah,
because, I mean, well, we could just go round and round.
And it's April 1st too, which is very appropriate.
Yes, appropriate. Absolutely.
I wonder if Putin, I don't know if they have April 1st jokes in Russia, but if they do, maybe that's why he picked his date.
It could be. It could be. Probably, I think there's a lot. Oh, there's the Road to Rutacoin.
Yeah, people should get there. Yeah, I know you've been saying you got the new Rutacoin coming out.
Oh, so yeah. We just announced the new Road to Rutacoin. It's the Ruta Lives coin. It is painted with a red heart, and it's a picture of Ruta. And if you know the comic book, she has a black heart in the comic book on her shirt. This is we're individually hand painting a little tiny red heart right in the middle of her shirt. It looks really cool. Go check it out at the subscription page. Also, go to our affiliates page and you will find Purple Power C60.
Yeah, C6 Purple Power. But that's it's a great antioxidant. I think well, they've already seen if they're on the because you put up our talk there at the.
Yeah, you guys can go see it, and Ken explains everything really so that you can understand it, but it's very complicated, but he's good at explaining this stuff. And we have that video at the affiliates link. It's C60 Purple Power, and it is, if you use Road to Ruta, you get 10% off. And now is the time you got to cleanse your body of all the bullshit. So
Oh yeah, and
definitely.
put your stuff into solid assets.
Absolutely.
Food, silver, all those other things, commodities. Yeah, I'm not a financial advisor, can't give financial advice, but unless
you can tell people to save their bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, on this channel, save your bacon.
Because it's just, I'm not, if you're a market trader, you could probably, and a professional, you could probably still be making it going up and down. But if you're looking for security and safety, you should be moving what you have into real physical assets. Absolutely. Because it's the same with coin or silver. If you got silver in somebody else's account or vault somewhere, a piece of paper says you owe it, you don't owe it, they own it, and you're never going to see anything of it. It's the same with cryptos. Yep. If you've got it on, Coinbase or one of these other places, instead of your wallet, poof, it's gone. So that's basically the thing. Get real physical assets in your personal possession, and that's the best security I think you can have.
Ken Swartz, thank you so much. Make sure you guys go to the affiliates link at roadtoruta.com and get your C60 Purple Power is the name of the company, and Road to Ruta is the discount code. Ken, thank you so much. Let's catch up again in the next couple of weeks. Pay me